Hello, my name is Maisie McDonough and I'm an ambassador for Politico's EU Studies and Careers Fair. Today I'm joined by Adalbert. So you work for the European Commission. Can you familiarise us with what the Commission does, what your role is and what you enjoy about it?
Hi, sure. Thanks for having me, first of all. So about the European Commission is essentially the executive arm of the European Union. So in a country, typically you would have a government and a parliament and courts. In the European Union, we don't have a government, but the European Commission plays that role. So we have commissioners who are a bit like national ministers, and of course we have a president, Ursula von der Leyen. Now, what I do in the European Commission is I'm a civil servant. I've been working for the Commission for about 10 years now, and I've had many different jobs in it. But right now, I'm a spokesperson of the Commission. I deal with one specific area, which is home affairs. In contact with the media, with journalists. I'm the European Commission in different media, but also I explain background, so kind of behind the scenes in a little bit more depth what we do. I'm one of the contact points for journalists of the Commission. In general, I really like about my job the fact that working for the Commission means I have a diversity of different possibilities and experiences. I have worked in many different areas and many different fields, and I can move from field to field relatively, maybe not easily, but there are those possibilities. And in my current job is really quite exhilarating. I get to speak to a lot of people. I get to learn a lot of very interesting things about what we do, and also I get to shape the way the European Commission communicates with the media and ultimately with citizens. And I think that's just super important.
So if we could talk about your educational background now. So you went to the Sciences Po, the London School of Economics, the University of Warwick and the College of Europe. Can you tell us about those courses and did you pick them for a particular career path?
Sure. Yeah, indeed I went to quite a few different universities. Whether it's with a particular career path in mind, I'm not completely sure. I think when I started off, I just had this idea that I wanted to work in some kind of political environment, and ideally international, and just have sort of an influence on the way things happen in the political sphere. And that's why I went to Sciences Po, and it's really a great place. And one of the good things about Sciences Po is that it enables you to have links to different universities. So that's how I ended up at Warwick as part of my Erasmus program, and also at LSE, which was a double degree program with Sciences Po. So that was really great. But when it comes to the College of Europe, this is a place that I went to after having worked for a good few years. And this was really because at some point after working for a few years, I realized that I really wanted to work for the EU, and kind of abandoning my career at that point and switching to, well, going back to university, and especially to the College of Europe was just an excellent way into that.
So you participated in the Erasmus scheme. Could you tell us what you took from it?
Sure. I went to the University of Warwick for my Erasmus year. I think it's a real shame that in the future students from Europe will no longer be able to go on Erasmus to the UK. It was really a great experience, even though I have to say Coventry, which is where University of Warwick is located, is a lively town, but maybe not what students generally think of when they think of a fun place to study. But it was still a great university, and I think what I really liked about my Erasmus is that I got to spend time in a pretty unusual place for a European student to be in a town which is maybe not an obvious choice, but also at a really good university where I had the freedom to study quite a few things that I didn't have the chance to study in France. So, for example, this is where I discovered gender studies, And I also could study things like philosophy of thought, which sounds really, really geeky. And it was quite a courageous choice, as I was told at the time. But it's something I really, really enjoyed, and that ultimately stayed with me for quite a while. But okay, I think really speaking are not just about the academic experience, but also the kind of cultural and social experience. And I have to say that I also made some really good friends there. So overall, it was a great thing.
So did you work alongside your studies?
Yeah, I was really quite lucky during my studies that I had some financial support from the French government. So I didn't rely on having to work to finance myself completely, but I did do a few internships, and also I during my studies at the LSE I did some odd jobs, for example writing risk analyses for a research company. And I thought it was actually quite a good thing to work a little bit, at least alongside studies, because that way the shock of entry into the work world was not as big as it would have been otherwise.
So at what point did you decide you wanted to work in the commission?
Yeah, it wasn't immediate. I think to a lot of people, and definitely for me at the time when I was starting out, the commission seemed like a pretty intimidating choice. And for my first job, I ended up being recruited by an investment bank right after my studies, and then I worked for a small consulting company that worked for clients in the public sector in England, which was great. It was really a lot of fun. It also gave me the opportunity to make a contribution to the community. So I really enjoyed that. But once I worked for a few years, I had an opportunity to kind of reflect about what kind of career I want in the long term. And then I thought that with the background, with the personal background that I have, Europe is something that kind of shaped my life, and I've also always also thought that Europe is where the destiny of our continent is going to be decided. It's going to be a lot on the European level, and I wanted to contribute to that. So it's after working for a few years that I decided that finally this intimidating choice of coming to Brussels is maybe not so intimidating after all, and it's something I want to give a serious shot. So yeah, it was after working for a few years.
So what are the main skills you acquired at university that you use today?
Yeah, I told you that being a civil servant at the Commission means that you have the opportunity to do quite a lot of different things, and I think that's something that I've so far in the last 10 years really used to the full. And it's also something that was very much present in my university studies. Actually, this flexibility and the ability to look into many different fields. That's something that you learn a lot at Sciences Po, in particular, where you study a lot of pretty varied disciplines, and you have to learn to make very quick and structured arguments about things that you're only discovering at the last minute very quickly. So this flexibility is something that's been really important. But also the fact that I worked in many different areas means that I've been able to use pretty exotic kind of pieces of experience or knowledge that I acquired at university in many different places. Of course, there's the kind of basis that I had in stuff like economics and institutional law and these sorts of relatively broad topics, but also for example, having a grounding in gender studies has allowed me to contribute in a few different areas from an angle that was maybe a little bit more original.
So can I ask you now how many languages you speak and how important are languages to work in the EU and international organizations?
Sure. I'm not really a linguist. In terms of working proficiency, I only really speak English, French, and Polish. But I kind of like languages a bit as a hobby. So I also can kind of understand German, and I've studied Japanese, which I think is really beautiful. And I've had a chance to use essentially all of these languages in my work, which I feel I've been quite fortunate to. In my daily work, I think, I mean, being honest, English is definitely dominant, and I think it's as a kind of main working language that we have. It's really important to be very comfortable in English. But French is also extremely important. I couldn't do my current job without being fluent in French because our press working languages are both English and French. And it's really useful to speak German as well in the EU. But I think if you're a student and you're thinking of maybe coming to work for the institutions and you don't speak all that many languages, then this shouldn't really be a barrier. I think any combination of 2, maybe 3 EU languages is good enough to start off, as long as at least you're comfortable in either English or French.
So there's not one obvious career path to work in the Commission. Are the career paths of your colleagues different from your own?
Yeah, quite different actually. I think one of the good things about the Commission is that we're an administration that's relatively small, but that covers the full spectrum of policy on the European level. So we really need profiles from very different sort of walks of life. We have a lot of political scientists, lawyers, and economists, but we also recruit engineers. We also recruit people with, for example, international cooperation background, or historians, philosophers, people with a more literary background, of course, linguists, all these different backgrounds. And once you become a civil servant, you can really craft your career path as you see fit. So, for example, my bosses who created the spokesperson service in our group of spokespeople have had wanted to create a team with a lot of different strengths and different backgrounds. So apart from people like me, for example, one of my most charismatic colleagues actually in the previous job was a manager in the internal audit service of the European Commission, and now he's a really good spokesperson. So there are many different opportunities and many different paths.
So what would you say are personal qualities to work for the Commission?
It's not an easy question, because I think a lot of it depends on the specific job that you're going to have, and we do have many different positions. But maybe as a personal reflection, what I can say is that it's a career in an administration, and especially one like the European Commission, is a bit more than just a job. It's something that you do for a long period of time, and that requires a certain level of commitment. I think you have to have a clear idea of why you're doing this and what you want of it. The Commission is a place that's full of very ambitious, very smart, very strong people, and as a result, it can also be quite competitive. It can also be sometimes a little bit frustrating, because things are not necessarily moving as fast as they should in a complicated European system like ours. So we also need a certain amount of sense of purpose in order to be able to withstand that, and a sense of kind of personal resilience. But maybe one thing that I really appreciate among colleagues is when they are not afraid to bring to their job an element of creativity. It's really that working in the bureaucracy can be, or something that's perceived, at least from the outside, as a bureaucracy, can be a bit soul destroying if you're not bringing into it an element of creativity and kind of personal engagement. So if you have these qualities, then I think you have a better chance of really enjoying yourself in a commission job.
So what would you say to young people interested in a career in European affairs?
Yeah, perhaps I would say something to people who are actually not so interested in a career in European affairs, because as it was for me at some point, it may seem a little bit intimidating, or maybe remote. But I think it's worth keeping in mind that if you're a European citizen, Brussels is also your capital, and what happens in Brussels affects you. It's also part of your system of government. And if you have an interest in influencing the future of your continent, then there is a place for you here. And it's not just a place for men in suits with kind of a middle class university background and thinking about law and economics, but we need people from all walks of life here in Brussels. And I think it's an open place that very much values different sorts of experiences. And if you please by all means consider it and look into it. We have a great traineeship program at the European Commission. Is a 5 months paid placement that you can apply for, and we have quite a lot of places. A great experience, and it doesn't commit you to a lifelong career, but it gives you a great exposure. And if you're hesitating, or if you want to know more, then don't hesitate to reach out to either me or maybe some of my colleagues, and we can give you a bit of an informal advice. So think about it.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I really benefited from this conversation.
Thanks a lot to you for having me, and I hope that we'll get a lot of applications thanks to your efforts.